Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Moodle Academy webinar. Today, we are going to explore learning maps in Moodle and see how we can design learner-centered gamified learning paths. I'm Anna Krasa, Education and Qualifications Coordinator, and I'm joined by Judith Birke from St. Gallen's University of Teacher Education. Judith, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Anna. Let me share my screen. Yes, here it is. So, hello everybody. And well, as I already said, I'm Judith Birke and I'm from the University of Teacher Education in St. Gallen. And I work there at the Institute for Digital Education and Information Technology. And I work there as a learning experience designer. I used to work as a teacher for many, many years. But now also for quite a lot of years, I've been focusing on digital learning. And I'm really happy to have you all here today to have a look at learning maps. Now, well, I actually have a slide for you to show you where I work. I almost forgot about that. So you have an impression of where it is. Actually, I work in this historical building, and there I work in a project called Aprendo Digital Competences. And within that project, that's also how I came across learning maps for the very first time. Now, today, we'll first have a look at why learning maps, why use learning maps. I'll try to let you experience how learners experience learning maps, so the learner's perspective. I'll show you quite a number of use cases and scenarios, how you could use learning maps, and also how to create them from a teacher's or trainer's perspective. These 3 points, they will be mixed a little bit because you can't really separate everything from the parts from each other. And at the end, if we still have time, I'll talk about the latest developments, and of course, we'll have hopefully time for questions as well. Now, why learning maps? Well, for me, it all started with a typical course. Maybe your courses look similar to this one. Maybe they look different, but very often courses have quite a number of activities. As you can see here, I created an example with Swiss cities, and they're in different sections, and often they are in a chronological order. Learners can access them straight away. And actually, sometimes they see things twice. Once on the left-hand side in the navigation menu, or course index as it's also called, and then on the course page. Of course, also on the course page, you could still have extra text and descriptions. And maybe if you use a different course format, this can also look quite different. But very often they look like this. Or maybe you have an arrangement where you have a sequential pathway where you let activities appear. Well, no, actually in this scenario, the learners can see them already, but they can't access them. So you might also have some access restrictions in your course. But still, in this setting, there's quite some scrolling that's got to be done. And again, the navigation is on the left-hand side, but also on the right-hand side, you see more or less the same thing. And by the way, maybe most of you know that anyway, but to create the sequential pathway, you make use of this restrict access feature. This is also quite a few clicks that you have to do to set this up. And you could also reduce the navigation by having the activities appear one by one by using the same feature again. Another few clicks to do for you. The restrict access feature, plus you're hiding maybe the activity so that at the end you just see this brainstorming activity and then the next activity and the next and the next. So you guide your learner through the course. And the last scenario that I wanted to show you, that's all without learning maps, that you could, of course, change the whole setting by having something like a placement test or a quiz at the beginning, and have some kind of adaptive pathway situation that the learners get after the placement test. They get access to one of these cities depending on the results of the test. Still, again, this means either you make everything visible immediately but not accessible, or you display it one after the other. In total, same thing here with the settings. In total, though, all these courses look pretty much, well, they look quite similar. It's scrolling, it's going from top to bottom. And that's different with learning maps. And that could be a reason for using learning maps. But the learning maps, they give you visual support, or your learners get visual support. And they encourage explorative learning because the learners make their way from the start to a target location, and they can choose which branch they want to take. It's customizable, which I'll show you, and also it has an intuitive interface. And there are a few more reasons. Everything I'm saying, I'll of course explain in detail later on. I'll show you. And there's some more reasons to use learning maps, which is there's a seamless integration with Moodle activities. As you can see, it's an activity, you can pick it where you pick all the other activities, and it's combinable, because if you click on one of these green locations or red locations here, then you get into an activity, any activity or resource, anything that you can normally put into your course, you can also integrate in the learning map. And it's free of charge, which is good too. Now, so this gives you already a vague idea why learning maps could be helpful. And now let's have a look at how people experience that. Now, I have prepared a learning situation for you. Now I will just move in my window with my learner. Now, this could be the situation that your learner sees a picture, a photo, something, in this case, this image here with a red point. Clicks onto that, has to do an activity. In this case, it's just a page, but there could be anything. You could have H5P here, or a glossary, whatever, all the activities or resources. Works their way through this activity and then says, okay, I've read that, I've done that, and then returns to the map and sees, okay, this is completed. Now I have the choice to go either to left or right. I'll go here, let's say. Again, I do this activity. Once it's done, I return to the map and see, there's some more coming up. And this way, the learner works their way through the activities. Actually, let's make this larger. And once more, I'll just do this very quickly so that you can see what the learner experiences. And maybe they get stuck here with an activity while they are trying to solve a quiz here and notice, well, I can't do that. Then, of course, they would not be marked as done. They would get back to the map and then decide to take another path. So this is the kind of thing you could do with the learning map. I'll show you a lot more other possibilities. Let me get this out of this window and show you the explanations. So the learner, as we just saw, works their way all the way to, in this case, to this target location, which has little dashes around the red circle so that they know that this is a target location, decides step by step, and of course, it's explorative. Now, you might say, well, but then they don't know where they are going, and maybe your learners don't want that, and it's not suitable for every context. You could also give them a kind of preview or sneak preview from the beginning before they've even done any activity, they would see, there's this choice, and then here in the back, this is a target location. So the goal is to get from here, from the bottom of the picture, back to the target location here in the back, which is vaguely recognizable. And often learners then decide to go the fastest track and notice that that's maybe not the easiest one. And then they take another branch, so they see the whole branching scenario ahead of them. Again, it's motivating, they decide the next step. Now, a different situation could be that they can still decide, but you give them more guidance because you have words, actually the activity names displayed in your learning map. If you wanted that, there are reasons, good reasons to do that. Like in the example here, you have different levels in your group and you want them to decide themselves here what they think, what kind of, let's say it's a language class and they have this learner decided that he or she is intermediate level, then they would start here at number 1 and work their way up to the goal, which is paradise up here. Maybe here at the box, they have to hand in something. So an assignment activity would be behind this red dot here. And then once they have handed in something, they would get to paradise. So you're guiding them in this case, because, well, if you once you pick the intermediate track, then you would go up here. Here again, you could then get some revision tasks, or up here, a bonus task. This is all completely up to you, how you arrange that. This actually could also look like this, that instead of letting learners decide themselves, you could have a placement test at the beginning. And then in the placement test, the learner finds out, well, I'm a beginner, and then works their way up to paradise. So this is the performance-oriented differentiation, if you want that. And if that's too many paths, learning paths, visible for you, or especially for your learners at the beginning, this looks confusing or daunting, you could reduce it, of course, to the relevant track so that the learner just sees their own track. Depending on their result, they get to, let's say here, the intermediate level. And in the background picture here, I placed a flag so that they would have an idea where they would need to get to. The goal is visible in the background picture here. Now, for you as a teacher, the learning map, if you enter the settings, looks more or less like this. Well, the picture is your own the picture that you choose, but you have the different settings. You can have the path displayed or hidden. It's you who controls the visibility, which means that you are the ones who guide the learning. But the learner still has a lot of choices if you want to. And talking about visibility, it's also you who decides down here at the bottom beneath the picture, who decides whether you want the learning map to be shown on the course page or as an activity symbol, and they have to click on that symbol and then they get to the map. But I'll show you that in the course later on again if you want to. So, yeah, we'll get back to this later on again. I mentioned before that it's customizable, that you can choose the learning places, you arrange the path, you give them more or less guidance. This also concerns the background image. It's part of the learning design if you want to, if it fits your purpose. You would, of course, choose it, well, that it suits your target group, but you can use anything. It's not just landscape or maps as we've seen so far. You could have a picture of your campus. It's an open university day, let's say, or if you work in a company or also at school, you have an onboarding process going on, you could use the learning map as well. You would have different spots on it. You could also display the activities names, as I mentioned before. So maybe it would say cafeteria here and registration elsewhere, or science lab, or whatever your context is. And then the users would work their way through the map. It could be completely different. It could be a timeline that you're creating, but it's always the same principle. You have a background image, you place your learning, your activities or resources on the map, and you use paths, visible or invisible paths if you want to. So timelines, or you could also have checklists here from an English lesson. And before I go on with a few more examples, let's have a look at navigation. Short intermezzo. We said learning places or points. You have the path. You have the map on the course page, as I mentioned before. Often the activities are put into stealth mode so that the learner can really focus on the map and the activities in the map, and not separately, but that's up to you. And you can also have in the activities, that's what I always do actually, is in the activities have a backlink to the learning map. So if the learner clicks on, let's say, the future tense in this map, then does the activities there, then there's always automatically the backlink to the map. So you don't have to take care of that yourself, you just tick the backlinks here. Maybe you've been wondering how that works. Now, some more use cases. Travel itineraries. Those who've been to Mexico last year, they might know this slide from the Moodle Mood, but this year it's in Edinburgh, so for events you could use it as well. You could have these places, and if you click on one of them, then you find out about the program or about the conference tickets or how to get there, accommodation, and so on. Now, let's have a look at this one here. It's a different scenario. You could also use the learning map for agendas, projects, diaries, set milestones, and let your learners work their way through the map. Now, all you've seen so far, the learner would do by themselves, but you could also have a group mode. Sorry about that. The group mode in which the group members work on their own devices. Well, of course, they could also work on one device, but the good thing is that they can work on different devices and they benefit from each other. And they can apply strategies to solve a riddle, for example, and win something at the end. Like in this example here, where you would set the group mode in the learning map activity. Sorry, my contact lenses are bothering me. In the learning map activity. And in this case, the learners would then click onto these. And there's also the task that they had to reach all the places in this map. Now you can only see 4 of them, but there were a lot more. These were just the starting places. On the left-hand side, you can see the map path completed. Whenever somebody of the group did, this was with math, did a calculation, then parts of these of the panels appeared. And then once they had completed all the calculations, all the activities in a group, right, then the cactus was in full bloom. Up here at the top, it's very small, but it says reach all places. They had completed that activity in a group together. And then I made another slide appear, giving them some kind of reward, the feeling that they had achieved something. But this change from here, without the bees, to the bees, that's not in the learning map itself. I just made one learning map disappear and another one appear so that this change happens. And because this is some kind of reward, and well, I think it's important to have something like this, which takes me to the topic of gamification, aspects of gamification. I have listed up here some of them. We all know that levels of progression is an aspect, or you can have challenges or quests to add a gamification aspect to your tasks, narratives and themes, storytelling, immediate feedback, surprises, all these things you can do with the learning map. You can include that in your learning map. If you're wondering if you can have badges, points, or time-based goals, they're not included in the learning map itself. But there are ways you can work around that. But that's something, maybe that's planned, that will happen one day, that we'll have that in the learning map as well. But as I said, you can play games, not just in the group mode, you can organize it also this way. You can present your learners this kind of map, and you would have some places accessible right away, maybe all of them, but the learners would see that here on the left-hand side, there is a target location. And if this is something that you do regularly with them, then they might know that the first thing could be, if the target location is accessible, that they go straight to the target location and check out what has to be done. And if they did that with this activity, then in this target location, they would read that they have to find out a code and enter it in this target location. Because in this activity, you could have a quiz, a test or something, anything where they could enter a code, but they would have to find out that code beforehand. And the code is hidden in the different activities. So if they did this activity over here, then they would get the number 8. And if they did the activity down here, 3. So they are motivated to move through the map because they need to find out the different digits that they have to enter in the target location. And that's something that learners love to do. And it feels like a game. You could increase that feeling even if you added some fog on your map and let the map appear. It's a setting also that you set as a teacher. It's just one tick that you place, and then the map appears. I will show you that again from a learner's perspective. If that's something for you and your learners, then the learner would at the beginning see this. They will go in there, complete the activity, whatever it is, mark it as done. In my case, I have set them to be marked as done, but of course you could have another activity completion criterion. And then they would go back to the learning map, and now they would see a bit more of it and decide to go maybe this way or wherever, and then go back, or they decide to go this way, get that done, and go back. And this way, the map becomes bigger and bigger. That makes sense if you don't show them everything beforehand. you wouldn't show them first the target location and everything, and then hide the map. You would let them start with the hidden map right from the beginning. Now, let's go on. Another possibility to set up the game or to add a gamification aspect directly in the map itself, in your background picture, you could include something like these trophies here, these different cups. And in this case, the learners had to get to the places where they see the trophies, solve the problem there, or mark the activity as done, whatever was behind that activity. And once they had collected 7 of them, then they would be able to get they would have completed the requirements and then get the certificate. In this case, it was. So this is the entire course depicted in one map with trophies to be collected, and only if they had succeeded in the quizzes, then they would get to the end. Here, I also decided to have the word start in my background image to make it clear to the learner that this is where you are and that's where you're going to. And once they had got all these, once they had completed the necessary quiz, then they would see a message displayed underneath. And this message, though, that this is displayed, that's what you regulate with the conditions that you set. I'll show you in a second how that works. One more thing, which, oh yes, you can see it, I think. You could also have the locations pulsating. This is just a little thing, but it can be helpful if the map is really full of content, crowded, then it's good to help the learner spot the different places. Or if it could also happen that when they see something like that map at the first time, that they don't even realize that there's something they can click on. So that's also an advice I can give you, that at times it might be good to have the locations pulsating to make it clearer to the learner that there's something they can click on. Let's have now a look at what I mentioned before, the badges and the points that are not part of the Learning Map plugin, not yet. But you can, there is a way you can work around that. Let me show you again in here. No, this is not the one. No, I'll show you in the, as a teacher, in my, not as a learner. Otherwise, it's difficult to explain. Let's go to the rewards. So what you would do is you would, well, create your map, of course. You would add the different locations and have images, or in this case, this is just HTML. You would create different messages in labels or text and media fields. So these four I have created. Down here are the different activities. You would have the learning map as well, which is here. I haven't placed even one because I want to show you how you would make the message appear. You would create a checklist. If you have that plugin installed, I'll just click onto that and say, if they do all the 10 activities which are on the map, then they have completed the checklist. And that's what you use then to make this great job. You've completed everything displayed. You can see here that it says not available unless the activity score 100% is marked. So perhaps I'll go in here. That's what I did. Or I can just do it down here again. Let's take this one. Excellent score, 10 points. You would want this message to be displayed once they had completed all the activities in the map. So you would say in here, would say that the activity with the 100%, that needs to be marked as complete. And I'll hide that. Unless they have completed the score, they wouldn't see that message. And that way, this message would appear once they had completed all the activities. And if it's only 3 points for 3 activities, then we'll do the same thing here. For the well done 3 points, you would say that the restrict access feature, the activity completion criterion is that the score 30%, this task needs to be completed. And that way, when they have done 3 activities in the learning map, you see the message, they would see the message, well done, score 3 points. And you could, of course, also... No, now before I go on with the progress part, let me return to the presentation. Otherwise, I'm not showing you how to do the whole thing, how you proceed when you want to do this yourself. My advice: first, create the activities the way you always do it. Don't even think about the map, just create your activities. Then you set the activity completion criteria for the activities. Don't forget to do that, because otherwise you can't pick them for the map. You need to have some criterion, like mark as done, or once you open it, then it's done, or enter something and then the activity is done. So number 2 gets forgotten, and then you can't find it in the map. Create the map, details in a second, and then you create these the points in the map by opening the settings of the learning map, deciding, double-clicking onto the image. This appears, a window appears where you could then, in a drop-down, pick the activity that you wanted in your connected with your learning map. You could decide to have that place. Any place on your map can be a starting place or a target place, or neither. It depends on where you want to guide your learners to, where they could start or where they should get to. And what you can also see here on the right-hand side is that this is all the activities in the course. The green ones have been picked already, but you can also pick them twice if that makes sense in your course. And the oranges ones here, they can't be picked because that's where you forgot to set an activity completion criterion. And that's the point where you might, at least that happened to me several times, that I forgot to set that criterion, and then I would have to go back to the activity and set it, and then I could pick them in here. And you could do that whole thing anywhere in your course. You could have that on your course page. You could have that in every section of your course, wherever you want to. You can also have several maps if you want to. And when you're doing this, then maybe you've also been thinking, well, I'll need an image. Where do I get that image from? Well, the usual things. You get it from Pixabay, Pexels, Adobe Stock, whatever you always use when you need a picture. You can draw them yourselves. You can even use PowerPoint or any drawing tool. You can sketch something by hand or take a photo of your classroom board and use that as a big background picture. Let's say you have written something on your board, or, well, if it's a digital board, then you're not taking a photo of it, you're just taking a screenshot of it and have it and can use that. Or you use AI and let your image create by the usual tools. For example, let me see if I have, I do have an example in a sec. I'll show you one for a prompt, but that's really quick. Or, of course, you could also code something and use that, take a photo of that, screenshot, and then use that as well. The recommendation or considerations you should take for the image is bear in mind your target group, the story that you're telling, the aspect ratio, what it should look like in the end. Leave room for the learning spot places, and the names, if you want to display the activity names. Bear this in mind too, but you will notice that immediately yourselves when it's too crowded, that it's hard to read the names and so on. Accessibility for learners, like red, green things. And if your learners would know where to start and where to get to, how do they know that they have finished that they are done with your learning map. And at times also where they should start if you want them to start at a certain place. And if you consider all that and then create a prompt and enter it somewhere, like me here in this case with ChatGPT, for young learners, I wrote that prompt here, a cartoon jungle path with 5 clear checkpoints not marked by signposts. I'm saying this because if I hadn't written that, then there would have been some points, empty signs, and you can't really write something on them, and so on. So this was, and the aspect ratio I wanted, and no labels, because we know that with AI tools, this can be a problem. So this was the result. And if we analyze it now, we would see that there's a path which I could use where I could place my activities. I have flowers, and the eyes of the animals I could also use for placing my activities. And the goal could be the sunbed here, and then they would work their way to the end here. But you will notice by doing it over and over again, by producing learning maps, you will experience that yourselves, how your prompt must be like. And even without AI, when you're taking your picture from elsewhere, you will notice immediately if it's suitable or not. Now, concerning the latest developments, I would say I haven't really done a lot with it, but the latest thing is that you can have the learning map also as a course format. And in there, the main map would always be on the course page. You can have several maps still. You would automatically, the first map in your course is then the main map. You can hide the secondary navigation, what you can see here, like participants or grades, reports, and so on. This is something that you can hide so that the learners really focus on the map. And if you haven't got anything in your course yet, then you would have a message displayed automatically that the course is not ready yet, which is a convenient thing because it happens automatically. And as I said, I haven't really experimented a lot with it, but from the way I've used the learning map itself so far, I'm sure I'm going to use that course format as well in the future. Talking about these 2 different plugins, I'll start with the tech talk really, really quickly only. That this is the plugin that I've been talking about, the mod_learning map plugin, which you find in the plugin directory. And you can also see here the developer, Stefan Hanauska, who created that plugin. Thank you very much, Stefan, for creating that. Even if he's not here today, then here's a message to you. Thanks a lot, because I've had a lot of fun with that, and also the learners have had a lot of fun with these maps. And this is the latest plugin, the format learning map, where you can create, where you can use, which you can use instead of all the other the formats that you have yourself. And if you're into code, you can also find out things on GitHub about the learning map. Yes, and you can, of course, also keep in touch with me if you want to. What I've shown you, the examples so far that I've shown you will be available at jubima.com, but this is really a brand new site that I've created. Also, the Moodle is new, so it's not really ready yet to let you in, but I'm planning to let you in there. And depending on if there are any questions or not.
Many.
Many, okay.
Many.
I do have other...
To my camera.
Okay, so we can go to the questions, and I can also show you maybe examples in the course, if that is part of the questions, then I could do that too. I will, maybe I'll just move to the slide for questions if oh no, I forgot to show you one thing. Sorry. There's one.
Go ahead and we will then to the questions.
Yeah, this last thing about the progress. I talked about the rewards before, these images that you can create, but you can also use a learning map this way. And I think this is a different aspect. That's why I want to mention it. Because so far we've always seen quite large photos or pictures with large maps, but you can also have a small bar, which is simple to create, just a yellow field, right? And have the different activities on here, maybe at the beginning of your course, but also at the end of your course, in the final section, you could have this kind of progress bar show, and where learners would see how many things they have done already and what's missing. Depends, of course, on the type of course you're running. I also create self-directed courses, so that can be important to the learners. That's one thing. And the other one, it could also look like this for children, but you could, as I said before, use a different image for adults. And let's check what your answers could be to these questions concerning your learning map competencies. Now that I'm at the end of this course here on this Moodle platform, the question would be: so do you know now what's a good reason to use learning maps? Hopefully you would say yes. You would save your choice, go back to the learning map and have a tick here. And again, question: do you know how to use learning maps? Well, at least hopefully you have some idea. You'd say yes and return to the map, and you've got 2 ticks here and so on, right? So this could also be nice to have that towards the end of your course, where as a kind of self-reflection tool, the learners would place these ticks. In this case, let me show you from the admin point of view. Where is it? Is it gone? Right. So for you as a teacher, this would look like that you have different, I used the choice activity here. These 4 choices, they are the activities in the map. And once you have completed it, we haven't seen that. Let's get back. Let's complete that quickly. So you will say, yes, I know that. And you would return to the map. And you would also say, yeah, you know who you can ask. And return to the map. And then you'd have this message displayed because you've got all the 4 ticks. Then the message would say, awesome. So now time for questions.
I think everyone can pass this one. Well, we have a lot of discussions going on in the chat. So I'll start with Ludwig's comment that he likes the idea of the flag on the map. And Cindy asked, how do you manage curved paths instead of straight paths?
Okay. Let me show you. So I go to the Moodle map because this is an empty map here. So I go inside. I double click onto the map to create the learning place. I would say, let's say, where is the mood? Oops, further down. Here it is. So let's say the conference program is the first flower, and then we'll have another flower, which is the tickets, also a starting place. And then you would go from one to the other. And now that's, I think, the question, that you just click onto the line and bend it, move it, shift it. Mm-hmm. And you can do that as many times as you want to. And if you double click it, double click, somewhere else, then you have another place. If you double click the line, it disappears. If I want to combine this place with that place and that place with this one, and have another activity in here. We'll move, let's say accommodation is something, also a starting place, and maybe you definitely want some accommodation there, so it's a target place too. Yes, that's how you do that. Oops, gone. Clicked next to it, or double clicked it again, and that's why it disappeared. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, that's very interesting. Nadia is asking, how do you make an image with text accessible?
The text is, if you don't write the text into the image before creating the map, the only text that you can display at this stage is the name of the activities. So here's a tick saying show activity names, and now the names are here. And then you can also drag them so that they are not in your picture in the wrong place. Let's say I drag this dot here and have the name here. Accommodation is maybe good readable if it's up here, that kind of thing. The color is the color of the paths. So you would have to consider that. At the moment, you can't adjust the size or of the text or the color separately. So that's only this color here. Let's take, white is really good for this picture. Let's take something that is not that good. If it was orangish, oops, orangish, dark, then you would not be able to read anything. And that's also something to bear in mind when you are picking the image. What do you want to display?
Exactly. Sarah asks, can you add the learning map retrospectively or only at course creation?
Anytime. So if I wanted to create, let's save this one. If I wanted to create one, I would just, let me go to the bottom of the course. If I wanted to create one right here, go in here, say learning map, give it a title. This is my learning map 2. Then choose the picture. See, let's take the progress bar again. It's the first one here. And then put the places here, any place. And that's it. One thing though, this is something to bear in mind. If you start with a large picture, let's take this one out again and put another one in. If you start with a large picture, let's take this massive one. This is before I downsized it. A large picture, and if you place some places down here at the bottom and then change, because you can still now change from, or save it and then go back and change it, then I would recommend, let me show you, then I would recommend that you see the places down here. And if you now pick the smaller one, then I'd recommend you, before you change it into the small one, that you move these places somewhere up in the area where the small map is. Otherwise, it might happen that you can't access them. If you do it, it's no problem. You go back, insert the large picture, the old map, the old image, and then you can shift them upwards. But it happens that, well, you change it and then you're wondering where my place is gone.
Thank you. I guess, Nadia, this answers your question about how do you manage to do that. So it's things are quite simple, as Judith saw. Francis says, just to understand, is Learning Maps plugin that we can add in Moodle? And yes, that's the case. I'm not sure if you were at the very first slides. this is a plugin, and the chats are shared within the links are shared within the chat. Mauricio asks, can you reuse in Learning Map existing activities already used in another course?
You can only insert activities which are in the very same course.
So you should first import the activities from the source course to the current course,
yes,
and reuse them. Chiara Maria asks, can we create more than one learning map for each Moodle course? For example, one per module, or for very long courses?
Actually, this is one course, and let me just cancel here. And let's say I go to the first section. I have this map in here, which is like a checklist, but this is the content of the first section, this section called Basics, about creating Moodle activities. This was, or in the next section, there's the one that you've seen already, the landscape, and the Moodle Mood one you've seen, or here AI for teachers. This map is also in the very same course. So, total flexibility.
Well, I have to inform you, Judith, that those questions were coming as you were presenting it. It is obvious that people get really excited. So they start posting questions. Some of them may have already been covered, but let's go through them. Okay. Do you create the pathways between activities from the plugin, or is it something that you must be designed in the background image and we just place the markers on previously drawn routes?
So what I've shown you is everything. You get everything with the plugin. So the
Exactly.
places and the path. The only thing that you have to create yourselves is the background image, and if you want these kind of rewards to be displayed. These things you have to create separately if you want them. You don't always need these kind of messages. Depends on your learning situation.
Exactly. So Nadia also asked, can we use Learning Map to connect multiple courses?
Well, that would mean that in the map you would need to be able to pick an activity from a different course, which you can't, but of course you could consider having the content of these two courses in one course, because if you want to, your learners wouldn't see all these activities here. The learners would just see the names of the map. Let me just get back my learner. So the learners, they just see these headings, they don't see all the activities. So even if you have long or large courses, 10 of them, you could just have 10 learning maps in one course, and your learners would be able to navigate them easily.
Thank you. And Mauricio asked, what is the difference between the two plugins? Because Luigi said the plugin, the link to the activity plugin and the link to the course. It has been already answered by Melanie, and you also cover it. But if you want to repeat that.
I can just show you one where I use the course format. This is now a course with the course format. Saying here, the message, there's no learning map in there because, well, I just started it. But you will notice that it's reduced. You would add your learning map in here. You could decide that the learners can't see here, that they can't see the secondary navigation if you're using that in your context. And once you have created the learning map, let's quickly get one. Picking this one again here. So you can also save it without adding any places. Then this would look like that, this here, right? This looks different from the course. This way you would know, this is the format. As you as a teacher, this would be the difference in handling it.
It's similar to a single activity course format, if you are familiar with that. Paul is saying that it's similar to H5P map activity, and he's excited that Moodle has learning map activity. It's not built in, it's a plugin, but you can download it for free. Valerie says, is the learning map working well when viewed in the mobile app?
If it's working well, I couldn't hear the last part.
In the mobile.
In the mobile app. Sorry. In the mobile, there's no special mobile app version. Generally, on the mobile, you would have the challenge of the small learning places, like with other activities where you have small things. You can click on them, but you would need to consider that, I think, when you're creating it. I think I have a slide I could show you, but a picture of, you remember the cactus? I always checked on the mobile phone if that's clickable. It is, but
not easy. Paul's also asking if users can access H5P activity from inside the learning map. Let's think any kind of Moodle activity. Sebastian asked, is there a way to fix the dimensions of the map so that its size does not increase with the size of the browser window?
What you would bear in mind, I think, is that, let me go back to this course here. Nope, the one that you could have the small thing, the height. I showed you one with the progress. That has a decreased height, but the width has to have a certain dimension. I'm not sure if it depends. I guess it depends on your theme as well. But this is Boost, for example. I noticed that the width generally is 800 or more. My image. If you reduce the width, then it will try to make it larger. And if it's a PNG or JPEG, then it won't have the best resolution then. So you can adjust it, but bear in mind not to take pictures at the beginning, at least when you start experimenting, not smaller than a width of 800.
Good tip. We are reaching the hour. We have several messages. The main presentations has covered. We will go through the questions quickly, if Judith, that's okay with you. Well, Gabor says, one thing I struggle with is when I'm creating a learning map with activities, as I edit the activities and the map will have relevant points ticked. As an admin, I test and preview the activities, and the map keeps following my progress, and the map gets very confusing very quickly with random stagings looking as complete. Keep having to reset the course to delete completion. While this is an okay solution to the problem, it is very difficult to use a map activity as part of a course because resetting a course would reset other unrelated activities as well as you risk losing data. It's something that I'm missing. I actually think that, Gabor, this is, since the learning maps are related to the activity completion tracks, I don't think there is a bypass way, a way to bypass this option.
Yeah, without the activity completion criterion, the system would not know whether an activity has been done or not. I'm not sure if I got the question right.
Yeah, the point is that as an admin, he needs to take the activities again and again while building the activity, while building the learning the learning plan. So it appears that they are randomly completed. And I think that goes in alignment with your suggestion to do all the activities first and then put them on the learning plan. I think it's the best tip for that.
Yeah, and to start off, what you do is you create first one activity. This can be like this one, an empty text page, and you set it right. You hide it if you want it to be in the stealth mode. You hide it from the learners. Well, you make it accessible but hidden on the course page. You set an activity completion criterion, and then you just duplicate it. If you just want to try things, rename it. That's an advice I can give you, that you have numbers or something in there that helps you then when you're picking or proper names, so that you pick the right activity. And then you just create some of them for experimenting. That's very quickly done.
That's also a very clever tip. So, yeah. And it says that we are always hesitant to use plugins as we are never certain of the lifespan. What are the prospects on maintenance?
Well, I'm not the developer, but I showed you the developer. Anna is smiling. She knows him as well. And he's very reliable.
Yeah. Well known. Yeah.
And I can also add that the project I'm using the maps for, that's also, it's a massive project, and I would never ever use a plugin which I could not rely on for that project. Yes, so.
That's awesome. Mauricio says problem out of the scope, probably out of the scope, but I was wondering if with this plugin you can create a board game style learning experience mixing the game of Goose and Trivial Pursuit, where learners are posed quizzes at each step and advance on the board depending on the answers and the potential event during the path. I would say that is a very interesting idea, and the tool can clearly support it. Yeah. You have to just put things on on the map and start building it.
Yeah, one thing maybe I can mention here, because I heard learners building things. You can, of course, also let your learners build a map as a revision task. For example, you could say, give them the rights. You just scroll to your map, and in the settings, you would say in here, you give the permissions to the learners to build maps themselves, which is really fun for the learners, that they can then produce quizzes or, well, games for their classmates, and then try to solve, well, the games of the others. That's also...
That's very creative. Okay, Francis asking, can we connect 2 or more courses with Learning Map? I think we answered this. You have to have all the activities in the same course with the Learning Map. James asking, do Learning Map support branching simulations? If so, is there a function or variable setting that limits the learner to 3 attempts on potential question?
If the Learning Map are supporting what kind of branching scenarios?
Branching simulations.
Simulations?
Yeah, like if it allows you, like the lesson activity, if there is an option that takes you from one spot to the other, and the user fails, what happens?
Well, yeah, if, let's say, I'm the learner in here, then if I get stuck up here, and the activity completion criterion, let's say, is you need to have the answer right for this H5P quiz in there, then you would try another branch. You would go in there and try
another path.
Yeah.
Thank you. Luigi says, he's thanking you for the presentation. Camila asks, if you choose the single activity course format, is it possible to create the activities for the map inside the same course? I don't think we said that, Camila. We said that there is learning plan course format that you can use, which is similar to the single activity course format. But you cannot, obviously, use the single activity course format for learning paths.
Yeah, exactly.
Two quick questions from Nadia. Is it possible to include alternative text for an image to enhance accessibility? For the background image, I guess. And can the information be added below to the image? As a description box, something?
It's not in the plugin, but if I had to or wanted to do it, then I would just have a text field underneath the learning map activity and write whatever you want to in there. But yeah, it's a good hint that there's no extra field. It's the image. When you pick the image, that's where the information about the image is in there. Yeah.
Joellen, I think, is asking, is there an overview in the learning map activity with the status of the activities our students have done? And Dax says that you can probably refer to the typical activity completion report of Moodle. Okay, that's covered. And that's all. Yeah. You have a ton of messages thanking you. I'm curious about one thing, if you got a second. I'm wondering, you have utilized this in the class? Have you seen behavioral change in the learners? I mean, you talked a lot that giving the learners choice, options to choose which path they take. But choice is typically a characteristic of a mature learner. How do the learners feel about that?
It's a good question. The learners I have are adults, and they do the courses online on their own. But when I introduced the very first learning map, this was the massive one with those trophies. I had the feeling that maybe some of them could feel overtaxed by seeing that map and not knowing what to do. And that's why I just included one extra activity in there, saying in the picture, I would call it help or support or something, and provide information about using the map in that extra activity. And I also provided an alternative version, so they could choose either you use the map or a checklist where you could just click onto a link and work your way through the activities. But hardly anybody, or actually I don't know anybody who used that checklist because they just enjoyed working with the map. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think you said all. Excellent. We are about to wrap up, and it's asking about the recording. The recording will be shared shortly within the Moodle Academy site, and of course posted in YouTube.
While you're sharing your screen, let me say thank you to everybody as well from my side. It was interesting to have all your questions, and I'll pass some of those questions also on to the developer. But thanks for coming. It's been great.
So if you have enjoyed this session, we would love you to consider getting involved further and help us grow by contributing to the development of Moodle Academy. You can do this by visiting the Get Involved course, which you will find in the front page of Moodle Academy site. You can suggest ideas for new webinars and courses, and you can vote on ideas that have been suggested already by others. We're always on the lookout for community members to help present webinars and co-create short online courses, and we would love your help making Moodle Academy more inclusive. So if you are able to, please go to our Translate Moodle Academy course and get started with helping us translating our courses and webinars into other languages. And of course, please help us spread the word about Moodle Academy by telling your colleagues about the courses we offer and the webinars we run. When you complete a course, you will earn a badge. And educators and administrators might like to think about getting Moodle qualified with Moodle Educator qualification or the Moodle Administrator qualification. You can learn more about these qualifications from the Moodle qualifications blog in the Academy homepage. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found this useful, and I hope to see you in upcoming webinars.
Thanks for coming, everybody.